the red flag flying here.
This is Political Unmuted. I've got the normal gang here. Paul Daly.
Hello.
Stuart Sutherland.
Hello.
Haircut.
Oh, I had one last week. Just looks better.
Is he from last week?
just looks better.
That's marvelous. Samantha.
Hello.
What's all this about rainbow tights?
Rainbow tights?
For God's sake.
Yeah, I'm not quite that flexible. Got a rainbow top on. Yes, I have a religious, almost religious affection towards a company called Snag Tights, who make tights for women of all and men of all different sizes. And they released some rainbow fishnets, and the money was going to Pride. Well, it was like a youth gay LGBT organisation, so I had to buy them, and I'm wearing them every single opportunity I can.
I saw the thing on Facebook. I saw the picture on Facebook.
Thank you.
Well, very, very colourful and very,
yes.
very proud. But I have wonderful guests every week. But this week we are just honoured to be joined by Mel Wilson, a prominent local union rep for the
CWU.
And just for people who don't know, tell us what a CWU union rep does.
So
well, first of all, tell us what the letter CWU stands for.
So that's the Communication Workers Union. So we represent posties is our biggest constituency, but also call centres. So BT and EE, who are obviously, we've got a big, massive call centre presence in the North East. And I'm delighted to be here. So thank you.
No. The honour is ours. We're so excited. So what was your role as a union rep involved? What kind of things do you get involved in?
So representing members in cases, so they might have disciplinaries or have sickness issues, or they might have problems in the workplace. So we're there to represent them, but also on a national level, because I'm a national rep, I get to negotiate with the company on things like pay rises. So this year we were really successful in gaining quite a significant pay rise for EE members for the first time ever since we got recognition last May.
Brilliant. I mean, what strikes me about, I was a union rep for a while. I don't think you would regard it as a proper union. It was the NASUWT, and we weren't affiliated to the TUC. But
hang on. Yes, we are affiliated to the TUC.
Well, you weren't when I was a rep.
Was that the days before they allowed women in?
No, for goodness sake, it was back in the time of the dinosaurs, I know. And the sort of most of the time, people thought it was all about sort of going out on strike, but it isn't, is it? It's about sort of nitty-gritty representing sort of your members to the management very often, sort of saying this isn't fair, and what's going on here, can I intercede on this person's behalf? And
building relationships as well, you know, with management is really important, I think, to build relationships with management.
Well, you've flummoxed me there. I was going to say very similar to what a councillor does nowadays, just representing his residents. Yes, but I mean, the sense that unions are somehow irresponsible is flawed by that comment that you make, that it's about building relationships, isn't it? It's about reaching a point where you don't have to take action.
That's right, and you know, preventative action. You know, rather than just going in when things go wrong, is to try and prevent that kind of thing happening, and to build those relationships before you get into a position where you've broken down that relationship between managers and members. Definitely.
Anyway, sort of, we're not discussing unions at all today. I don't know whether that's a relief or not, but sort of, and the first thing, Paul, is. And now, because you're just so important to us, what is your moment of the week? What has been your moment of the week?
Still talking to Mel.
Oh, sorry, John, I didn't realise you were talking to me. My moment of the week, okay. So my moment of the week this week, I received a delivery in the post of a brand new football shirt, which is a football shirt that my union, the CWU, have created. And it's in conjunction with Show Racism, the Red Card. Obviously, Black Lives Matter movement that we all know about has kind of disappeared a little bit off people's radars and timelines and things. It's still the case. Black Lives Matter. It's still the case, whether you can see it or not. So I received my lovely football shirt this week. If I can just angle my camera.
Oh,
Lovely.
There we go.
Fantastic.
Do we like this?
Is it pink?
Sorry, Sam, but that
it is
beats
pink.
your rainbow tights.
Hang on. Let's not pit women against women here.
It is bright pink, or Pantone 214 is the
Okay.
correct colour. And this is to raise money for charity. So essentially the proceeds of this is split between CWU anti-racism education programmes and also Fair Share, which is a charity that distributes food to charities across the country. So that is my moment of the week. I absolutely love my new shirt and I will wear it with pride.
Jealous as anything now. Just jealous.
You can buy them, can't you?
You can buy them. It is on our website, cwu.org, and they are £25.
So if you want a five-a-side team, five-a-side teams could buy them, and
Exactly.
We could play, but we wouldn't win anything. But
I think it would be a brilliant team.
Good play. Who shall I have next? Paul, moment of the week.
I think I'm going to go for the very, very confused social media of and policies of our government and our local MPs. Honestly, it's absolutely bizarre. So I'll get to the point of what I'm trying to say. The blue-collar Conservatives, who consist of people who have all been professionals, as far as I know, I don't know of any of them who've ever done any blue-collar jobs, have written to the BBC to tell the BBC to not take away the funding for over 75-year-olds for free TV licenses. And they've done this despite the fact they're in government and they were the ones that passed the cost on to the BBC. So Gordon Brown brought in free TV licenses for over 75s. Something at this time, I think, during coronavirus, I think TV can be a lifeline for some older people. And, you know, it gives them a sense of feeling like belonging to the country. And they've written to them saying the BBC shouldn't be doing this. And it's like, what are you doing? Do you know what your job is? Your job is to go and vote against stupid legislation like that take things away from people. Okay, the BBC funding model, it's got critics, including me, but, you know, if you're going to take something away that is a political decision, then don't blame the company that has, you know, had to implement your decision. You know, you're in government. Don't write to the BBC, like, you know, what is it? Well, I'm an MP in government and I'm going to write a petition. I shall write a petition to the government. It's ridiculous behaviour and I don't understand what they're doing. And I don't think they do either.
I think, Paul, they do this. They do this with councils all the time. That they cut. They'll set something going like a homelessness initiative or something like that, and then they will cut the money, and they'll sort of say that the council's able to continue now. Well, of course, the council can't continue because there's no money to continue it with. And then, of course, they go into the press and criticise the council for cutting services.
In addition to that, we've seen today, Paul Howell has been deleting comments and blocking people because they've been showing him his own voting record on his Facebook page. They showed him how he'd voted when he has voted, despite the fact it's against the Conservative manifesto pledges to not have a drop in food standards. He voted against an amendment to the trade bill that would have protected food standards. And it was a very simple thing. It wasn't like a party political thing. There was nothing in there other than we will make sure that we will protect food standards and we will not see a drop in the trade deal. He's voted against that, even though it was a manifesto commitment. He voted against the NHS being on the table in a US trade deal. And he doesn't want to know that, you know, you've got one job, go and vote in the interests of your constituents. And if you can't do that, at least face up to them and say, tell you what, I think this was in your best interests. for this reason. He
That's
clearly
right.
didn't think that, and he's just voting with a whip.
Own it. Own it. If you do it, own it. And sort of, that's right. Stuart. Thank you, Paul. Stuart, moment of the week.
This week I've been trying to get out of the house. My wife Ashley and my daughter Alex, we've been out enjoying a bit of the countryside and experience what kind of shops and establishments are open and the kind of things that are going on. And one of the things I found out this week is that we have a community clothing bank in County Durham, and that won't be able to open until sometime in September due to the struggles with getting help, the coronavirus situation going on. And it kind of highlighted to me how difficult it is for people who need that really important help. There's no help for those types of systems and those setups, and there's all the help in the world at the moment, I think, for bars and eateries around the county.
Yeah. I bought my wife, it's my wife's birthday on the 24th. I bought her a pair of binoculars, and so we've been going out all over the countryside so she can use the binoculars and spy on people. And don't tell her I said that. Oh, she'll be watching it. Oh no. But one thing I've discovered, Stuart, is that I think people believe that you get coronavirus by looking at people. Because what I've noticed is that sort of nobody's obeying social distancing at all. Everybody's just crowding together in huge crowds of multiple people, but they're not looking at each other. They're all sort of like this, looking their way and perhaps holding their breath. I don't know. So they've obviously decided that you get it by looking at them. Thank you, Stuart. God bless. Enjoy your trips out. It's you deserve it. And Sam.
Hello! Just to check in on what people are saying in the comments, the jingles are a bit loud, Paul. If you could turn them down a touch, I don't know whether you've got the ability to do that without turning off Zoom or blowing up the world, but if you can, I think that would be appreciated.
Fine last week and they didn't change it.
Also, Barbara, your wife, who is watching, thinks you should get a football shirt because it's pink and it's your colour, apparently. Somebody has
suit you, John. It would suit you.
Somebody
definitely.
has put the link to how to buy a shirt on the comments as well, so go to that and buy one if you've got any money. I don't, unfortunately. And Tim gives us the inside scoop that one of the people that Paul Howell blocked today was a local nurse, and that tells you all you need to know about the Tories, doesn't it? They don't actually want to listen to the people who are on the front line doing the work. They just want to keep up appearances and push anybody who's got anything inconvenient to say, including what they voted for, under the carpet as much as they can. My moment of the week was the day that schools broke up and the most famous father in the country, father of an indeterminate amount of children, Boris Johnson, went on national TV and told everybody they were going to get back to work in August and managed to totally fail to mention childcare once in the whole press conference. And I was just, and I have to, because, you know, I've got to look after my blood pressure. I can't watch all of these government press conferences because obviously I've got strong opinions about them. But I did watch this one all the way through, and I was like betting myself, no, he's got to say something about childcare eventually. But he didn't, because, I mean, again, it tells you all you need to know about him and his brand of Tories and what their expectations are, and that it's just none of their businesses. Men at the table, because it's only men at the table making the decisions, obviously. It's none of their business where the children go. The nanny will probably sort them out.
Didn't he say that he found fox hunting semi-sexual this week as well?
Oh, God. Well, I tried to repress that.
I was hoping we wouldn't mention that.
Honestly, no. How in the world do we elect someone who thinks that not only is fox hunting really, really fun, like ripping it, like, yeah, let's murder a fox, that'd be great. That'd be
No. How did we get from going back to work and childcare to a sexual relationship with horses? No. At the end of that discussion, I'm going to move on.
There we go. Excellent
chairmaning. Your comments sort of. This will go down as the X-rated version of Politically Unmuted. So that, I'm sorry, Mel, it isn't like this all the time.
She has met us
I've
before,
seen
Jan.
them. I have watched them.
I realise that you're
I have
normally
been on the
like
show before.
innocent to everything.
Mel joins us, and then all of a sudden, yeah.
What
Oh,
does
we
that
come
mean?
to Paul.
Now it's time for the big story.
Hopefully that's a bit better.
It's slightly better.
Great was that. It was just fantastic. Don't listen to anything what we say. Sort of, I don't agree. This is the listeners here. I wrote round the guests and I said, these are the big stories, the 3 stories that we're handling this week. Can I have a volunteer to ask the first question? Because we just all chat amongst ourselves, don't we? But I always ask the first question to one person, and they sort of kick off and tell us what it's all about. And none of them offered at all to do anything. So the punishment will be, I am now going to totally surprise them by just asking them this question. So
You can tell he was a teacher.
Is that right? Right. This is your homework to find out. Paul, who is refusing to hold an inquiry into a performance which is the 3rd worst in the world?
I think it's the government are refusing to do it yet. I think there is some sort of move towards yes we will, but maybe maybe the same length of time as Chilcot Tug. I think, is that right?
Yes, and what are they refusing to look into?
Their own performance in response to the coronavirus and the procurement of PPE and government contracts and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Is there anybody on the team who thinks they've done a good job? Is there anybody on the team who wants to talk about them not doing a good job?
Yes.
Paul.
I think we're also looking into cronyism here, aren't we? So I think that the problematic thing we have with the coronavirus contracts is that they are basically giving the contracts to their friends. Is that about right?
I'm not sort of. It's disputed whether it's their friends or not. I mean, the government are denying that it's their friends, but it's certainly.
Well, one of them was.
Shady,
so they've given a contract to a pest control company that had £18,000 worth of assets to distribute PPE to the entire NHS. It's a pest control company. They had like thousands and thousands of people willing to do these things, and they choose a pest control company. And some of them actually are the friends. There was one company that is that actually worked in the Department of Education when Michael Gove took over in the Department of Education, and he joined at the same time as Dominic Cummings. And what I think that what they offered, they called Public First, and it didn't go to competitive tender, this contract, and it was for communications. It was for communications over the coronavirus, and there's a bit of a mix-up. It's like kind of, was it for Brexit? Because it could have been for Brexit, it could have been for leaving the EU. That was what was on the balance bill. That was what they were paying them for. But actually, it was coronavirus they were paying them for. It's just an absolute mess of cronyism. The government are breaking their own rules with regards to procurement of goods, and no one seems to care. And I think that's the worrying issue for me, that, why isn't there a public outcry that, you would understand if someone came in and said, I can provide you, my company can provide you with your urgent PPE, and we can do it faster than anyone else. But that pest control company, none of the PPE they managed to procure has ever been used. None of it. So, all this PPE that we needed so desperately. So I could understand if a company could come in and say, tell you what, give us the contract tomorrow and we'll do it. And I could understand why the government would say that's an emergency, so we don't have to put this out to tender. These are people who can act in an emergency for us. This is a national emergency. But don't say, oh, well, actually, we're not going to put it out to tender. We will choose a random pest control company to do this, and we'll never see that PPE, or it's now in a warehouse in Daventry, apparently, all the stuff they've ever ordered. And the government had to put up 75% of the entire budget of that contract up front when they limit themselves in usual times to 25%. Well, if they have to do that, just put the order in yourself. It wasn't even a company that made that. It was a company that ordered it. They've paid this company this huge, vast sum of money to order some stuff that's ended up in a warehouse. It's utterly ridiculous.
But Sam, how do you think they're doing? How do you think they've done?
Well, what I keep coming back to is the fact that the groundwork, the foundations that they've created over the last 10 years has probably been the worst starting point for dealing with a pandemic. And I know I'm not going to say the Conservatives are responsible for a pandemic, but it's not true to say that they didn't know it was possible. Like, policymakers knew it was a reasonable risk we were going to get a pandemic, and they've known it for about the last 10 years to expect it, and they haven't expected it, and they haven't laid the groundwork appropriate for it. And I just keep coming back to things like, if we still had sewer start centres, they would have been perfect regional, local bases to distribute the type of aid we needed in the first instance. If people had protections at work and hadn't had those eroded by ripping trade unionism apart and the 0 hours and casualisation of contracts, then we wouldn't have the catastrophe that is about to happen with people getting laid off left, right and centre. I mean, I know a care worker who effectively got sacked because she was asking about how she was being kept safe at work, but she wasn't really sacked because it was a casualised contract. So she was just mysteriously not given any more hours. You know, that's the reality that we're living in, and it's just the worst possible starting point, and they haven't covered themselves in glory since. And going back to stupid ways to spend money, all you have to look at is this track and trace system, which is absolutely feeble and doesn't work because they never got the app off the ground because they decided they want to make their own and not use Google and Apple, which anybody who knows anything about mobile infrastructure knows that was stupid to start with. And then they've ended up having to use Google and Apple anyway. It's just so, and that's billions of pounds wasted.
Mel, what's your take on this?
Well, I did do a bit of homework, John. I did a timeline of catastrophes from the government. So, I mean, right, we'll start off then. So I won't go through the whole lot. All right, 31st of December, that's when China alerted the WHO, wasn't it, that they had this new virus that come to light. And it wasn't until, let me find this date, because it was really far down in my list, 2nd of March, that Boris attends his first COBRA meeting.
Yes.
I mean, you know, you took 3 months, 2 months.
Leave him
and
alone.
what did you do in between that?
Pardon, Paul?
I'm saying leave him alone. He was on a boat trip.
I was gonna say,
Time for a holiday
too
for the Prime
busy.
Minister. He was boating.
You don't understand, Paul, that this is the biggest crisis the world has ever known. And it's unfair to expect your government to have a clue what it's doing. Sorry, Mel. I'm sarcastic with each other. Carry on.
No, well, I was just going to say what Paul was saying, that he was too busy each evening sorting out his divorce and getting engaged to someone else and having babies and stuff. And then you look at the whole catastrophe where scientists had advised people not to shake hands with anyone, and then 3 days later he's saying, I shook hands with everybody in the corona ward. You know, I mean, come on, you know, how are we supposed to trust this man essentially with our lives? You know, we're supposed to trust this person to run a government competently, and there's not one scrap of evidence that any of this has been run competently whatsoever. Nothing.
I've got a theory about all this that I was talking about to Paul last night. And have you noticed how the government make rules and then they undermine their rules by their actions or their words? So they say you've got to wear a mask when you're shopping, but then go shopping without a mask. And they say you've got to stay in your home, but Cummings comes up to the northeast. And I think there's something insidious going on there. That sort of throughout, it's not just been a case of the government being incompetent, being far too late to lock down and things like that. I think it's been a case of the government's been playing a game. And sort of, we all know that there's some very right-wing forces in the country who've been actually saying that it never existed and we were wasting our time. We shouldn't be locking down. And I think there's been this continual kind of nod of the wink to them. You must stay in your house. You know, and continuously undermining their own things.
Or
Stuart,
they're different fundamentally, and they don't have to follow the rules. It could just be that.
Is it important people don't need to? Stuart, last comment on this.
Ooh. Really badly. There's the bad government. let's just, you know, zero it out to nothing. They're a bad government at this kind of stuff.
You know what I blame them for most? I blame them for the murder of untold numbers of old people in care homes, because they were shipping people out of the NHS, and we all know why they were doing that. They were terrified that it was going to get overwhelmed, and they were just shipping them back into the care homes, sometimes when they knew they had coronavirus. It was just a disaster waiting to happen.
Devastation.
My big question is why? Nobody gives a damn. Nobody cares less. Nobody's angry about this. Everybody's defending the government. They think Boris's stock is going up. It's not falling. The Tories are riding high in the polls. Why is nobody angry about this? I mean, have you any idea, Mel?
Oh, I think people thinking of their own means and ends. You know, so you've got people who've been furloughed and they think, oh, well, that's not too bad then. I'm still getting paid for being off for 3 months to stay in my house. Can people not see past the end of their own nose? That's what I think. Perhaps I'm being a little harsh, but I think that people aren't looking into the bigger picture. I think they can see that, oh, I'm all right here. I'm all right in this little bubble. I've got some money coming in. I'm fine. Can't see actually what's going out in the bigger picture.
So will this change when they're all thrown out? Will this change when they're all thrown out of work because the government's not had an adequate exit plan?
When the economics change, definitely, without a doubt, and that's going to be a big shift, isn't it? And we'll see when we come out. Well, if we come out of it, doesn't feel like it, does it?
Paul,
I'm going for I think people are fundamentally deep down good, and I think people think they're playing the part by, you know, we've got to respect our government. They can't be challenged because they could say that if we don't. And I think going down to we discussed this yesterday as well, John. The BBC, there's a quote from the BBC saying they don't think they should publish any more of Boris Johnson's lies, because if they highlight the fact that he's lying, that will undermine people's faith in the government. Now, that's a very, very strange. I get the logic, but the logic is so flawed. I think it might be partly to do that. People don't want to undermine the government, because if you do undermine the government, then that mixed message that the government give out might not stick. You know, we don't know whether or not we can go to work, not go to work, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, but you have to wear a mask, but don't, but we could punish you for it, but don't, you don't have to bother, but, you know, you do. That message get diluted, and heaven forbid.
I'm much more bitter and angry than you, Paul. I mean, I think that it's absolutely cynical that they've turned people on each other. So we can see things going wrong, but we don't criticise the government. In fact, we support an ever more right-wing, autocratic, unanswerable government. We just attack the other people. Those idiots going on the beach and not social distancing. Those idiots wearing masks. Those idiots not wearing masks. And everybody is just continually ripping each other's throats out about a whole set of things that actually many of them don't matter. Sam?
So, interestingly, today the report into Russian interference was released, And one of the things that it says is that we're not talking about stuff in ballot boxes and anything as obvious as that. A lot of the Russian interference in our political system is about destabilizing us in any which way possible and sowing discord between people. So we could very well have Russian bots on Twitter spreading stories about people going on the beach and people doing this and people doing that to push that narrative and to get that result, what you're talking about now, where we're all biting at each other's backs. But the other thing to say is, I forgot what it is. So I'll leave that there.
that was very good.
Yes.
I often do that. So I get scared with my own words. I forget what I was going to say next. Last word. Stuart is our last word man. We all know. So we expect him to come up with some really deep insight in less than 5 words. Last word on this, Stuart.
Nobody's getting angry because everybody's busy trying to stay alive.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say. Yeah, it's self-defense, isn't it? Everybody's so focused on actually staying alive, and people feel that if I criticize the government, then I'm causing this destabilization, which I don't want to see, and people want to live in a stable country. So,
thank you very much. Smashing points. And we come to...
A change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
Sam, who has won the right to return to try to win the right to return?
This is, of course, Shamima Begum. Look, let's not kid ourselves here, right? Our government knew she would win the right to return. They knew they'd acted illegally, and they were hoping she'd die before she got the right to come back. That's the truth of it. So, of course, people were going to, because lawyers love trying to win cases that is going to get them in a history book here, there, and everywhere. So, of course, she was going to win it because she was going to get some really good representation. And what I get frustrated about, obviously, I've got, you know, I'm all about the kids, and I think about the babies, and that's a real emotional sort of hook for me. None of the babies deserved what happened to them. And she was a child herself when our system allowed her to be abused the way she was. But I'm not going to turn around and say what a lot of people think I'm going to say, which is we should bring her in and give her a council house and pat her on the head and say it's okay. You know, she needs to come here so she can face justice for the things she's done in the law, which is how we run the country. That is how civilized societies behave. We don't just throw people away and ignore international law. That's not the way we work.
Thank you, Sam. Mel, have you any thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, you know, similar thoughts to Sam. We have to remember that 5 years ago she was a child. She was a child leaving this country, essentially groomed into that situation, and we need to understand why that's happened. Why a 15-year-old has been so disenfranchised with her life here that she turned to something like that. And let's also, obviously, as Sam said, let's be mindful that this child has lost 3 babies, 3 children. Now, of course, I think she needs to come back. She needs to come back and answer to what she has or hasn't done, whatever the evidence might present. But also, not just to serve some punishment. I think you need to look at this restoratively. So use her voice, whatever has happened to her, and when she's ready and when she's kind of atoned for her actions, if you like, use her to tap into the disenfranchised youth now, to try and put an end to this kind of thing and stop, you know, young girls being treated like this and groomed and took out of the country.
I mean, I read an article by the Muslim Council And they said precisely that. They said that by just basically doing everything you can to hurt her and reject her and exclude her and deny her her rights, you actually fuel greater anger against the government amongst disenfranchised Muslim youths. Sort of the answer is to bring her back and sort of let her explain to people just what happened to her there and what IS did to her and how her life padded out when she made that decision. And sort of they said the case where being kind, in fact, will yield rewards practically, as well as Sam's talking about is just being what a civilized country ought to be doing. Stuart, sort of, I mean, do you have any different views about how, I mean, let's talk about jihadis in general. Sort of, there's literally thousands of people in prisons in the most appalling situations in Kurdistan at the moment. I mean, what, and many of them British. I mean, how do we deal with it? But basically, Sam's right. The government is just hoping they'll die in those prisons, and we don't have to address the issue. It's clear as day that. So, how should we deal with them?
Well, I mean, clearly, Shamima's become a kind of poster child for that whole situation, and we are completely missing an opportunity by not bringing her back and, you know, exposing the cold realities of what trotting off to war actually looks like and how it could end up. It's a really tragic story that, if it was properly exposed to the British public, might discourage people from doing the same thing and following the same path. It's such a missed opportunity.
Would it have been different, Stuart, if she'd had an easy time of it? Sort of, would you have said, I mean, she remember when she was, I mean, Mel Wilson mentioned the word groomed. She was clearly groomed. And when she went, she didn't go to fight as she thought she was. They just sort of put her into a baby making factory for the gratification of one of their martyrs. And I mean, it's just the most awful story. But would it have affected you if she'd have gone and actually had a good time there and enjoyed it and sort of not suffered in the way that she has been suffering? If she'd been of the age of majority when she made the decision to go, as most of the people, most of the jihadis, would that have changed your view of how we need to deal with her?
Oh, no. I mean, being a British citizen, you know, inherently means something, and it means that you're going to face the standards of British society. And when you trot off as an adult, as, you know, part of that, it's such a, I don't want to stretch this into a complex situation, but people who go should come back and receive what's due to them. You know what I mean? I don't want to make it sound like they're coming back for punishment and only that situation, but they should face the full scrutiny of the British public if they choose to do that.
I mean, I think this about people who deface monuments and people who smash windows for a cause. You know, that's wonderful. But sort of stand up for your cause, but there's a consequence for what you're doing. And sort of, and we can't, because it was a cause, we can't say, oh, and so I'm now absolved of any of the consequences. Last thing, Paul. I mean, my thing of this is that, you know, all this rubbish about all lives matter, and then suddenly all the people who've been screaming all lives matter at you, suddenly Shamima Begum's life doesn't matter, you know, she can stay and rot. I mean, does this expose the basic racist flaw running through much of the right in Britain at the moment?
There was something going around on a meme or something where they described a woman who had been groomed and so on, and they didn't say it was her. They said, you know, this woman had a photo attached, I think it was a blonde woman, and, you know, you're feeling really, really sorry for this blonde woman and think, you know, sounds an awful ordeal she's gone through here, you know, she was groomed, etc. And then, you know, you come out the other side. Actually, we're talking about Shamima Begum, and the sympathy goes away. My confusion really is, what's she done? Like, I don't know whether anyone can articulate what it is she's actually done. I know she went to Syria to join ISIS when she was groomed to do so, which is something that perhaps like our authorities could have done a better job with. And I know she said some quite unusual things when she was interviewed that weren't particularly pleasant. But there's people in this country who have said very, very, very unpleasant things. Like I've read on a local MP's Facebook page that they are going to kill some, well, maybe not kill, but it was like do some very serious physical damage to anyone who goes near a monument. Now that is a similar sort of stupid thing. Are they being denied their citizenship of a country? And I'm not defending her, really. I don't agree with the ideology, but why is it that I don't really know what it is she's actually done? What was this great crime that she's done apart from to be groomed? And then how is that worse than Saudi Arabia funding ISIS and using our weapons and giving UK bought weapons to ISIS, and Turkey supporting ISIS to destroy the Kurds, who are actually the only force in that area who were really making inroads against ISIS? I don't understand why we make this all about this individual girl who went away, and I would never agree with her political ideology, but I don't really know what she has done, as in going over there and being part of ISIS. I don't know how that's not okay, but it's okay to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia so they can bomb Yemen and sell them to ISIS, or give them to ISIS. I don't know. It's proven. I don't understand the debate at all.
I read an article on this in The Independent, and they were saying the problem is that Tony Blair abolished the charge of high treason. And so the only thing we've got on Shamima Begum now is that she broke a travel ban to go to Syria.
She hasn't murdered anyone, to my knowledge. She hasn't.
Thank you. So next question. And this is because we're so short of time. God bless you. And I'm going to ask Mel. This is your question. What are the Brexit spirit generation too scared to wear?
Oh, you tell me, John. I don't understand what the problem is. I mean, when this all kicked off, right at the back at the beginning of March, I was walking around the shop wearing a what do we call them, a bandana type thing around my face. I thought, well, it's better than nothing, isn't it? If there might not be any evidence that it's going to work, but do you know what? Stick it on anyway, whatever. People look at you as if you've got two heads. It's just a scarf, pal. Right? It's still a bit chilly out there. Could be anything. So I just don't understand it. It's like, just wear one. If you can't, all right, I get it. Yeah, there's exceptions. That's not a problem. I ain't going to challenge anyone. If anyone's not wearing one, I ain't doing that. But just wear it. What is the problem? I don't get it.
I can't see why they get so angry about it. Stuart, have you any ideas why people are getting so angry about it?
I don't know if it's because people just don't like to cover their face, and lots of people for such a long time have argued against face coverings that it might hit at the core of their ideology that way. For me, it's a dead easy thing. Carrying a mask in your pocket, you're pretty aware of when and when you shouldn't be sticking it on your face.
Sam, is it?
Yes.
Is it? I mean, is this essentially? It's certainly a very right-wing thing, isn't it? That they're getting very cross about freedom. But do you think it's this idea that Stuart's just said that it's linked to the hatred of the hijab? I mean, sort of, what do you think it's all about?
Well, we've certainly seen other, I'm not sure whether they continued on this line because this was a month ago, but it was a Danish politician said something along the lines of, "Oh, we won't be going down the lines of wearing masks because that's not in our culture," and they've quite publicly been against face coverings for religious reasons. So I found that interesting. What is it's funny because it's a feminist story coming back again. It's my body, my choice. You know, if I want to wear a mask, then I should be able to wear a mask, and if I can't wear a mask for any reason, sort of what I wear on my face or not is none of your business. And people are struggling with that. Again, going back to one of Boris Johnson's bizarre press appearances when he was talking about masks, the reporter did say, "Hang on, the police have said, because you're making this a criminal, you're making it illegal to go into a shop without a mask, so that has to be enforced by the police, and the police have said they can't enforce it." And Boris Johnson's reply was, "The police won't have to enforce it because the public will enforce it." So he's encouraging this mob mentality of us quizzing each other and saying, you know, why are you not wearing a mask? And that flips on the other side for the people who don't wear a mask, like you say, because of this idea of individual freedoms or whatever. They also feel emboldened to quiz other people or make them feel stupid for wearing a mask. And I just think
there's two things here, Sam, that sort of strike me that I'd like to run past you for comment. The first one is that two old people from one of our care homes in Newton Aycliffe went out shopping, and it was basically the first time they'd gone out, and they received abuse in the shop for wearing a mask, and now they don't go out again. And the second one was somebody who went on the Facebook page that we run, Political Unmuted, and said that they are just as worried the other way, because there are some people who genuinely are exempted from wearing masks, and they are receiving abuse for not wearing masks.
Yeah. So the story, I think the reason, the thing about that care home, I think they look after adults of all ages with learning disabilities. So they weren't necessarily, if you see an old person with a mask, you probably look at them and go, oh, well, they've probably got COPD or something. But seeing the young people wearing the mask, some people responded to that negatively, which of course is stupid, because young people can have severe asthma and any other number of conditions. So they might want to wear a mask to protect themselves. And that is very worrying. But what I like to focus on is the community's response to that. And the community was rightly outraged that this had happened. And that story was shared hundreds of times. You shared it, I shared it. And we all put out this message of solidarity together saying, no, this is too far. You know, everybody needs to mind their own business. You mind your own mask and not comment like that on other people, because it is just ignorant and stupid and short-sighted. And the other thing is, yes, exactly. My husband has really severe asthma, and he's more or less said to me, as soon as it came out on the news, he said, okay, I'm going to need you to go to the shops more often, because I'm not going to want to go out in public not wearing a mask in case people put me up on it, because it's too stressful. It's too much of an anxiety because it doesn't have to happen, doesn't it? Because you're always anxious in the back of your head that it's going to happen, and that kind of anxiety can impede your normal functioning, which is great for me, being a mother of 3 children and having 6 million jobs, and now I'm going to do all the shopping as well. But I don't begrudge Alex for that. He's a lovely man.
Good for him. Mel.
Yeah, I kind of want to, I don't want to put a cynical spin on it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Do we think that it's some kind of cynical ploy from the government who initially said, you don't need to wear masks, now you need to wear masks? Oh, and here we go, people are rounding on each other now. Well, the government said in the beginning we didn't have to, and now they're saying they have to. Whoa. So do you think there's some kind of cynical, I think there's some kind of cynical thing there that they've kind of rounded on the public and said, well, yeah, fight amongst yourselves, takes the heat off us, doesn't it? You're not going to look at our failings now when you're fighting against each other.
I mean, I do think the government has been caught out throughout this, blaming other people. I mean, they even got to blame the care homes for the care homes' deaths, and sort of anything but me. But people believe them. Paul, are you going to wear a mask?
Yeah, I have been wearing a mask. Today I was in a shop. I was the only person wearing a mask, which I thought was quite strange. I have like backup masks, like hide ones in my car because I'm quite used to doing it. It was quite funny because a few months back I had a debate with someone online, and they were saying it was about the Boris Johnson letterbox comments, and they were saying, "Oh, you wouldn't go into a shop with your face covered up because you could be in there to rob it." And I was like, "Well, I've done it many times when I've been out on my bike. I wear a buff, so it covers everything but my eyes. And really, I don't want to adjust that when I go into a shop. So I'll walk into a shop and buy something with that. And no one's ever said anything to me about having a face covering on. So I say that because I was wearing one of those today when I went in there, and it was so hot. Like, it's much better to wear an actual mask. But I think this debate it's a bit of a strange one to even have. I think the problem is the government have said masks aren't effective. That's initially people, they said, "Oh no, you don't have to do that because masks aren't effective." And I think Trump's gone down this line, and Bolsonaro's gone. It's almost like a sign of weakness if you wear a mask. And we saw Sacha Baron Cohen going to an event where they were all saying that, "Oh no, I will never wear a mask," and it's not a real issue. It's just the Wuhan flu, as they call it. And so we've got this mentality where this isn't taken seriously, and then you don't have to wear a mask, and then all of a sudden we're being told to wear masks that we're being told are ineffective. The reason to wear a mask is to reduce transmission. It's not to protect you. You don't go out there and you aren't protected personally. You're more likely to be protecting others. And the more people who wear a mask, the more likely it is that the transmission will be reduced. Now let's think about the numbers. 46,000 officially have died from coronavirus. It could be more like 70,000, we believe, if you look at excess deaths. But if you look at that, if you're talking about, if there's a 1%, if that would have reduced 1% of the cases, then out of 46,000, that's 460 avoidable tragedies. 460 lives for you wearing a mask. Come on, let's just do it. Let's just not whinge about it. And the other aspect of this is thinking with one another is very, very, very important here. There will be people in perfectly good faith who will not be able to go out and wear a mask in perfectly good faith. And if only we could trust one another's motives entirely, and we should, and I certainly won't be calling anyone out for not wearing a mask. I won't be shouting at them. I won't be policing them, because I think that's a disgraceful thing to do, because that person could have a genuine reason for not wearing a mask. But if you can wear one, just wear one. Even if, what's the worst thing that will happen if you wear a mask?
Well, that's a really good point.
A little bit restricted, but
because
it could be terrible for some people. But
the story that's being spread is that it stops you from absorbing oxygen. I've got people who have passionately argued with me that wearing a piece of cloth over their face is going to stop them getting enough oxygen to survive. I don't know how they think doctors and surgeons perform their day-to-day jobs, but if wearing a cloth mask stopped you from being able to get enough oxygen to survive, then we'd be in a really, really bad situation with all of the surgeons killing over on us.
For me, it's just a matter of kindness. And quite frankly, it is such a small thing to ask of me that if it's going to make other people more confident and feel more safe in the shop, then what the hell am I doing? Just put the bloody mask on and stop moaning. And sort of, I just think it's all part of the loss of kindness in our society at the moment. We've become a very, very unkind society. Quick.
We've also become really polarized. If you think about how people go on Twitter, for example, you're either pro something or against it. There's and people have put themselves in factions. So if they see their tribe behaving in a certain way, so and it's unfair because a lot of people who voted for Brexit will absolutely be going out to do that. But a lot of people who were online who were very, very in favour of Brexit will go online, and then they seem to be very vocal about not wearing masks, and people who are very, very fervent Conservative supporters have been cutting up their cards and saying that, you know, oh, I can't possibly support the Conservative Party anymore because this is such a disgrace. And it seems to be these really like extreme views, and I'm not talking about people, loads of people around here who voted Brexit, so no way am I putting that on everyone who voted Brexit. But you get these very extreme opinions.
I'm going to
just make that decision and say,
I'm going to break into rudely because we've run out of time. Can you believe how quickly this hour has gone? I mean, and sort of last word on this to Mel. Sort of the last word on Mel. We're looking for. Sorry, Stuart. It's normally you I come to last, but Mel's our guest.
Sorry, Stuart.
Special. So we're looking for a great word of wisdom for you, Mel.
A word of wisdom. Just wear one if you can. I can't come out with anything more wisdomous than that. Just wear one if you can.
I suspect that's probably the wisest thing.
And be nice, like you did. Be nice to people.
Mel, have you enjoyed yourself?
Absolutely loved it. It was really good to talk to you all again. Yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you.
We've missed you. Thank you so much for being on. Sort of, I mean, you just sat so silent most of the time listening to Sam and Paul. And sort of, you just
I didn't speak
must
up
come
this
back
week.
and be on again. You must come back and be on again. Stuart, goodbye.
Goodbye.
God bless you. Thank you. Sam.
Bye.
And Paul, God bless you, everybody. Thank you, listeners, for listening to us. There's the comment section, which I'll go and be having a look at as we've done. Paul's
been brilliant.
With our normal no pass around. Same time, same place next week. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Keep the red flag flying here.